Like, they say you shouldn't be afraid of death, but it's just like, why? It's fucking horrifying. One day, like, everything that I know, all my fucking loved ones, everything that I perceive to be real is gonna just turn off one day. That's fucking horrifying. Like, holy shit. I do nothing all day and it makes me feel so fat, lazy every day, lol. Yeah, I used to fucking, I used to like sleep in like a lot. Like I used to just like, okay, this is gonna sound, okay, so I've rewired the way that I thought. I'm back and ready to do your mom. I'm gonna do your mom, kid, fuck you. Okay, so I've rewired the way that I've thought about things. Okay, this is gonna sound like super dark, and I understand that people use Twitch as an escape from like the void of reality. So I'm about to get dark for a second. If you don't want to hear it, leave the stream, okay? That's my little content warning, okay? The past doesn't exist anymore. The past only exists as a memory. It is no longer a physical thing. The past is gone forever. It is nothing but a memory. It doesn't exist anymore. And the future is undetermined. Well, I think it's determined. I just don't think we have the cognitive tools to like know what the future has in store for ourselves. So right now, the only thing that exists is the present. That is all that exists. And your life is just a series of presents. And your present self is going to be your deathbed before you even fucking know it. Like, it's like insane. Like, you only exist in the present. So like, how crazy is it that like your present's going to be you dying at some point? Like that's insane to me. And my mentality was, well, fuck it. Like if the past doesn't exist anymore and the future's undetermined, let me just like act what's like beneficial to my present self. Like, let me do the action that provides my present self pleasure. Like that makes a lot of sense to me, because if this is how the world works, then I should do the thing that empowers my present. And that's always how I view the world. I have completely, my mind has been completely changed on it, 110%. I believe that you have an obligation to yourself to maximize the quality and quantity of utility or happiness in your current presence. Does that make sense? Like, if you have to take an initial hit of happiness for 10 years to gain 35 years of happiness, you should do that thing, because there's more presence that is spent in happiness than presence that you spent losing happiness. So if you have to do a thing that sucks and you hate doing it for an hour, which will lead you to like a week of happiness later, you should do that thing. It's an obvious trade. Like you should just like, you should do what maximizes the amount of happiness. And this is how, since this rewiring has happened in my brain, I have completely gone about life differently. Like instead, like I used to just be all about like immediate desires. Now I take initial hits in every way, shape, and form in life if I could gain more happiness later. And I've been doing that, and it's a little overwhelming and it's really hard, but I think I'm gonna be better off for it. Evan, write a book? No, I can't. You're telling me to write a fucking book? I can't even read your guys' fucking stupid Twitch chats. You think I could write a book? The future may be undetermined, but I'm pretty determined to peg your dad. Dude, shut the fuck up. Well, if that were 100% true, wouldn't you be focusing on the future? If you take an L in the present, does that make sense? You can't really live completely in the present, and the past is important to reflect on learn, right? Well, I think they exist. What I'm trying to say is that like you don't exist. Your past self doesn't exist anymore. That is nothing but a memory. It existed at some point, but it doesn't exist anymore. The future is undetermined according to us. Like, right, we don't know what the future has in store for ourselves. It exists, like it'll be coming up, but you don't know that. The only time that you could perceive the future is when your present self is moved to the future. So the future is only a couple of series of presents away. What I said earlier is no longer like in the physical world. That's a memory now, because that past self is done. Like that present is gone. I'm in a new present. Now I'm in a new present. Now I'm in a new present. Every second that goes on, I'm in a new present. So like the future, I don't know what the future has in store for me, but eventually my present self will be in that future, and then you have like an obligation to like make sure like your present is like good, it's like well off. I think like it's about like maximizing the amount of presents that are like happy. That's like sort of like my goal with life now, is that like if I have to do something that fucking sucks and my present self hates it, if it'll lead to more present selves being happy, then that's like a good thing. Existentialism much? I'm not trying to be like, listen, I'm sorry to do this. It's just like I'm trying to build the framework of how like I build my motivation now. My motivation is not like chase immediate desires. My motivation is try to maximize as much happiness for my present selves as possible. Like that's my entire like objective with what I do. Before, like, if you would have asked me 2 years ago, EVO, like, what should you do? My immediate answer would be like, always do what's best for your present self. Like, immediate desires are just overpowered. Only care about yourself in the present, because nothing else fucking exists. Only focus on that. That was the logical conclusion that I came to. But as I start getting a little older, I realized that your present selves are going to exist in futures soon, before you know it. So you should maximize as many presents to be happy as possible. That was my like mental rewiring of how I go about like my ambitions and goals in life and shit. What I'm trying to say more or less is that like, hey, motherfuckers, you're gonna be dead before you know it. Do all the actions that lead to the most amount of happiness, okay? Don't get sad. Don't be like, oh my god, I'm gonna die soon. Like, nothing fucking matters. Don't do that shit, okay? Milk as much utility and happiness out of this fucking existence as you possibly can before you croak. You have an obligation to yourself, okay? Do that. Do that thing, okay? I feel like the only flaw with that, in my view, is that death is the motivator. I feel like death shouldn't be so deep. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, maybe I'm just different. I'm like extreme. Like, they say you shouldn't be afraid of death, but it's just like, why? It's fucking horrifying. One day, like, everything that I know, all my fucking loved ones, everything that I perceive to be real is gonna just turn off one day. That's fucking horrifying. Like, holy shit. So, like, to me, it's like, well, if I only have a limited amount of time, let me just do the actions that leads to as much happiness as possible. Let me just milk this for all it's worth. Like, maybe you feel like, oh, death shouldn't be so deep. Like, yeah, death, it's like whatever. But to me, it's fucking horrifying. It's so like, holy shit. I talk to a lot of people, and it seems like people, they watch Twitch streamers to escape from reality. Like, that's like the big thing. Like, oh, you know, you're like, Twitch streams are like an escape for me. So like trying to drag you guys back into the abyss of like the real world. I'm sorry to do that. Oh yeah, sorry. I won't try to keep this philosophical. No, Burger, you're totally fine. I don't like, the thing is like, okay, so here, let me rephrase that. Let me actually say what I want to say. I understand that you guys come to streams to escape from reality, but I don't give a fuck. Okay, let me rephrase that the way that I want to rephrase it. There are things that I find interesting, and there's things that I like to do and stuff like that, and I will talk about those things. If it makes you uncomfortable, fucking leave, okay? Like, if you don't like it, just leave. That's what I mean to say, okay? But I'm not gonna say that because I like my average viewer count to go up. I feel like dying is like completing life, but you could only do that if you're happy with the way your life turns out. Yeah, maybe. That might be a good way to look at it. Song name, please? You guys want to know what this is called? Like, wait, this is fire to you guys? Evan in chat, death is inevitable. The song? True. Pulling motivation from nothing seems strange. Trying to motivate yourself is hard because a lot of the times, like when you ask a question, why should I do this thing? Why should I do why should I do this? It'll always lead to another question, and then it'll lead to another question. It'll always root back to just like fundamentally like nothing. It always does. Why do you want to be happy? Well, I don't know, wired that way maybe, but like why? And you just keep like asking why, and eventually just kind of like dead ends. So it's like, oh fuck, like how do you motivate yourself if like everything just leads to nothing? You have to see nothingness as empowering. Yeah, I think so too. Like I think you have to. What will exist after you've gone as memories? A baker will leave filled stomachs. A writer will leave minds wandering in their stories. It is your choice what you want to leave behind. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. It just be more or less like motivating people to realize that, right? Like if you're like extremely fucking depressed and like you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die, like what's the fucking point of anything? Like how do you convince someone in this mentality that like, hey, you got to leave a legacy on this world? Because then they'll ask like, why does that matter? I'm gonna be dead, so I can't even perceive the legacy I leave on the world, so why should I care? Like how do you convince someone like that to like care? It's really hard. Like fuck, like when you experience like somebody you care about like into this like really dark avenue of life, I don't know if I even have the philosophy to like convince somebody that like anything matters. Like how do you convince them? Like I know that I'm not in that, and I know that I will actively like reach to like do things to better my life, but how do I convince someone else to do that? Like that shit seems like really hard. Nothing matters, but if nothing matters, then why not? Like nothing is. Yeah, you see, that's my thought process 2K, but if like the thought process dead ends logically to nothing, how would I convince someone else to get to that same conclusion, right? Like if your two avenues are nothing matters, why try? Or nothing matters, fuck it, let's try, might as well. Like if these are the two like outcomes that you could conclude, neither of them being like completely logical, how do you logically convince somebody to follow the one that's better for themselves? You do. That's the thing. Like that's what like irks me, because like I don't know. Like how do you? I mean that sucks, you know, right? Like what if there's someone like you like really care about, and like this person provides you like measurable happiness in your life? Like, hey, if this person being happy leads to me being happy, so I want to make sure that this person is happy. So like remember how I talked about earlier how you should maximize your own happiness? I believe that other people make you happy. Like this is just an imperative truth. Like humans are social creatures. Like we need people to be happy for us to be happy. So if I have a friend who is sad and it's because of this thing, I would obviously want that friend to be happy, so in turn I become happy, because I believe that you should maximize your own happiness. So like how the fuck do you do that? Like how do you, like I don't have like a logical answer for this, and that's like, and more or less that's what bothers me. Then make yourself a source of purpose. I guess you kind of have to just like devolve into just like a rational thought process, because that's actually like a really cool way of looking at it. I've never actually heard someone say that before, Kay. That's actually super interesting. Make yourself a source of purpose. Interesting. That's like, that's cool. I like that. Well, I'm not qualified dude or anything, but it's sort of like you don't become one with the idea of ourselves, like a state of existence, but it's more like you Candy! Candy cakes! Candy! Candy! Hi! We're talking about death.